Alright class, hard, you have to do all these problems. All these problems are technically due in full. In English credit, you'll have 0 for your homework assignment. Today's video is about the worst college professor ever. Professors. Gotta love them. Well, I have had both sides of the extreme throughout the 4 years that I spent at college, with some being really awesome professors and those that definitely left a mark in my GPA, which was not so good. However, there is one that I had this past year that definitely tops the list of the worst professors that I've ever had. This basically was my differential equations professor. Let's call him Mr. Merp. I know, I will explain. Basically for a major, which is meteorology by the way, I was required to take this course called differential equations, which unfortunately was a requirement. I had taken calculus 1 and 2 back in my freshman year of college, but after 2 years of no math, this class had to come to bite me in the rear end. Basically, during my fall semester of my senior year of college, I had to take a class with this guy, and from what I heard from people, they said that he was an alright guy, which was good to know. This compared to the professor that some of my friends had to deal with the year before, who was an absolute idiot when it came to the workload he gave them. I was expecting this class to be more manageable, especially since when I look at the rubric at the beginning of the class, it appeared to be straightforward. However, this would be proven wrong going through the semester. Unsurprisingly, there were a bunch of issues that I want to discuss, but for the sake of this video, I'm only going to discuss a few. The first reason why I didn't like this professor very much was with the way he taught the class. Basically, Mr. Merck would be going 100 miles a minute explaining the material, and not only that, so was his way of breezing through things on the board. There would be times where I would be finding it really hard to follow along because I would be caught up in writing an entire theorem or like 45 steps to this one example that we happened to be working on. This on its own was pretty annoying and was something I didn't really enjoy when it came to this professor. It would also be worse when he would also ask for people to help with the problem. Obviously with me not taking math for 2 years, I wasn't too keen with embarrassing myself in front of the whole class. Unfortunately, that did happen one day when he called me out to solve this simple integration problem. Alright, who can solve this integration problem? Please don't be Xtreme, solve the problem. Yeah, that definitely was not fun to deal with, but luckily that was one of the only few times that he called on me, which was alright with me. But with many others, they end up getting called on quite a bit to solve these problems. And I would feel really bad for him as a result because the problems he would be solving were literally like rocket science type problems. So you can only imagine how hard it would be to solve problems like this. While this was the least of the issues, the next one were ones that contributed to why I see this professor as a bonehead. The second annoying thing he did had to do with our first exam. Basically with the exam, we were required to take it online, but we had to download the lockdown browser and use the webcam, and not only that, we were also not required to use our calculators on the exam at all. Yeah, I know. Yeah, Mr. Merp didn't allow us to use a calculator on the freaking exam. Instead, we were required to use an online calculator to take it. On top of that, we were also required to take the exam in a computerized software, which we were already using for our homework, but this turned out to only accept exact answers on the test. Like, what the heck, dude? And even with the test itself, it was something like 26 questions over a 2-hour limit. So basically, you had little under 5 minutes for each question. Like, dude, these questions were so freaking hard, yet this guy expected us to know what we were doing. I honestly don't know if this guy assumed we were all geniuses, but clearly none of us were. Even the class itself was half math majors and half meteorology majors. None of us are geniuses. Now, with the test itself, I tried my best to get through it until I ran into another problem. Remember that online calculator that I mentioned before? Yeah, there were some issues with that too. Basically, a couple of problems required the use of the logarithmic and exponential function. This was when he crossed the line. Like, dude, you had one job, and he failed it. After the test itself, let's just say the end result was not good, and not just for me, but for everyone involved. I remember literally going to class that day, and from the mood I can tell that something was definitely up. With the exam being online, we still had to come to class that day. So I'm sure that people were staring daggers at the professor as he did class, as if he was programmed to only be there for that. In fact, Mr. Merp didn't even acknowledge there was an issue until 5 days after exam when he got multiple emails from us about the error. He basically said that he would offer a retake, and after some negotiations, it was agreed upon to have it moved to next week, and that the test would be given as a document online, but also for partial credit, which is pretty nice. We also did get to use our calculators too, which was also nice too, so thank goodness for that. But we're not done yet. The third thing this professor was known for doing was that he intentionally did not make the effort to help anyone outside of class, which was pretty annoying. Almost all professors I've had were willing to meet outside of office hours or respond to emails too about help that we had. This professor was basically no help outside of his office hours, because if you had an issue that you need help with, he would just tell you to come to his office hours the next day. A friend of mine had this happen to her the day before a test, and this guy responded telling her to come to office hours on the day of the test. Really, the day of the test. This guy clearly was the definition of robot, to be honest. The next thing he did is by far one of the most evil things I think he has done during the time I had him in the class. And this happened with our second test. While the test went pretty much smoother with it being in document form, there was yet again another problem. This professor pretty much amped up the problems from the study guide. The study guide itself was just as bad too, with some of the problems that no one could even attempt to begin with. So once again, the test was impossible to do. The next week we were informed that the problems that he gave us were not fair and that he never even bothered to attempt them beforehand. Okay. I can't even begin to fathom how bad that is, because that screams lack of care for students. Like, dude, you literally made us go through heck just to tell us that it was intended for that to happen. Well, at that point, I was convinced that this guy really did not care whether we ended up knowing the material or not. He was simply a robot in my eyes. As the semester drew to a close, things only would get worse, with the workload piling up and our final exam date approaching as well. Throughout the class, we had 10 homework assignments to complete. However, these would be released one by one during the semester. By Thanksgiving break, we had completed only 7 of the 10 assignments. And the main reason for that was due to one particular homework assignment around Halloween that happened to be a dud. Around that week, we were issued a homework assignment, and a typical homework assignment usually consisted of 15 homework problems on the online homework software we used. This particular one had only one problem. When this happened, we took it as a professor just trying to give us extra credit or just a fluke, but we didn't end up telling him about it at all. A couple days after turning in said homework assignment, we were informed by Mr. Merp via email that the homework assignment we completed was a fluke and that we were all required to redo the assignment again with the correct problems this time around, which was a bit frustrating at the time, but we had no choice. After the break, since we had 3 homework assignments left, I was expecting the professor to drop 1 or 2 assignments since the semester was coming to an end, but we were so wrong. He ended up giving us homework assignment 8 after break, which lasted to the following Sunday, and followed that up with the last 2 the preceding week, which was exactly 1 week before finals week. Even worse of that, we were given a short time period to even turn in these assignments, which sucked. By early December, course evaluations were already out, and I'm sure by then the entire class was ready to just bury this professor in the dirt with the reviews. I happened to be one of them after getting said notification about the last 2 homework assignments a week before finals week. I took 2 hours, yes, 2 hours, to berate this professor in my course evaluation review to pretty much demonstrate how ridiculous this professor was. Once I was done, I looked at my meticulous review of this professor and hit the submit button. After that, the last 2 weeks, as you expected, were heck and pretty much was the worst part of the semester for me. Luckily, I managed to survive the class with a B+. That was only due to the fact that there was a large curve of the class, which is the only saving grace of the class, to be honest. If that wasn't there, I probably would have gotten a D in the class, so thank gosh for that. Still though, this class would forever go down as one of the most stressful classes in my entire college career. It really wasn't the best on my anxiety and stress levels because I felt myself grow a few gray hairs after that class. And that's it for this awesome and amazing video. Thank you guys for watching this video about me ranting about this teacher. Yeah, that was a lot. I've been meaning to do this for the last few months, but of course, you know, got pushed back because of college. But at least I got this video out now, and my goal is to get a video out every month from now on with the Xtreme stories. Yeah, hopefully you guys can see more of this soon. Again, I'll see you guys in an awesome video next time.